Hello and welcome to Infamous, the audio podcast. This is Brandon, or Mutilus on Discord.
And this is Aaron. I go by Treffenwood on Discord.
As always, links in the show notes. We are back with another riveting episode of Rambling. So, I guess starting off first, you watched anything cool? Any new media come out?
I have had a significant amount of opportunity over the past week to watch TV. We'll
Nice.
talk about why in a little bit when we get to Hobby Corner. But I finished Agatha All Along.
Okay.
That is by far my least favorite Disney Plus TV show. And I have a very low bar for TV.
Oh boy.
Yeah, I would not recommend anyone watch that show. And that's rough for me to say, but I said it.
Wow. I'm surprised you disliked it as much as you did. I could see you not enjoying it a lot, but I didn't think you'd actively hate it.
Okay, so I kind of took the first couple with a grain of salt because you and a lot of people are like, oh, it gets better, right? You just got to figure out. And then the last episode, which I didn't even realize was the last episode, like...
I was not a fan of the last episode either.
The dude is literally trying to kill her. She thwarts him. And then in less than 30 seconds of screen time, they are best buds going off to kill the world together. I'm like, what the ever-flying fuck? I don't get it. Oh, killed me.
The real
just a microcosm
real treasure
of my issues.
Was the friends you made along the way.
Yeah.
So
characters were just pinging left and right and up and down, and there was no continuity to fucking anything.
Very fractured. Yeah. Did it get better in the late to middle?
Not really.
No, okay.
Not for me.
All right. Well, good news. You don't have to watch that again.
Yep. So then I immediately swapped to The Acolyte, and I got 3/4 of the way through that until Disney Plus realized that it wasn't my account watching it. So now I got to figure out how to get Disney Plus again.
What? Great. Okay. So I've watched a lot of Amazon shows lately. It seems like Amazon releases all their shit right back to back to back, and then they're done for the year. And so I've watched the new season of Invincible, which you reportedly hated.
The animated?
But I very much, the animated show.
I watched one. Was there only one season, or were there two?
There probably was two when you watched it. There might have only been one.
Then I definitely, if there were two, I watched them both, and I don't need to watch anymore.
Yeah, I very much like the show. The season 3's been good. I like it. It's hard not to give spoilers, so I'm just going to leave it alone. But the comic book it's based on has been out for a long time, so a lot of people probably know how it goes. The other one I've been watching from Amazon is Reacher, who's also on season 3.
I just added that to my to-watch list, so you have to tell me if I should keep it there or take it off.
I like the show. This season has felt kind of odd. So the seasons are episodic, kind of, and less serial. So the individual seasons are very serial. And then they switch to rotating stories. It's kind of like James Bond. The guy wrote a bunch of novels with this as the main character. Mm-hmm. So each season is basically one of the books. And so you'll get overlap from characters from season to season, but it's mostly cameos. So the only thing that's the same is the main character. But yeah, it's a good show, but this season has felt kind of weird. Where normally it's a very much a, super crazy over the top character that could never exist in real life is man-moding his way through being a covert secret agent, freelancer guy. I don't know. It's kind of odd, but it's just, I don't know. His acting seems to have fallen off a cliff in this season, and I don't understand how that happens. I don't know if maybe they changed directors or something, but there's so many scenes where he's got this weird, confused look on his face when he's supposed to be doing something. And I'm like, I don't know if they think this is coming off well, but it's not. For example, there'll be a scene where it's he's negotiating with a kidnapper, and he's trying to pretend to be this other person that the guy doesn't know. And so he's supposed to be intimidating or something, or, mysterious. And instead, he looks terrified the entire scene. And I'm like, that's not how you sell confidence, buddy. You look terrified. I don't know. It's just weird. The show's still good, though. It's fine.
Cool. By far, the best thing I've watched in the past year is still Joe Pickett. I think it's available on Paramount and Amazon.
I need to watch the new season of Yellowstone. I haven't gotten around to that yet.
Part 2 or part 1 or the entire thing?
There's part 2.
There's season 5, part 1, and then part 2, I think just launched a short while ago.
Okay, that's probably what I need to watch then, the second part. So the last thing I watched, which shouldn't be spoilers because it was like over a year ago, I think at this point, they had just left the ranch to take the cattle south. That's the last thing I saw, which I think was the end of season 4 or 5. I didn't know they were doing a second part of season 5. So
yeah, they split season 5 into part 1, part 2.
That's probably what I missed then.
Okay.
But yeah.
I will finish part 2 when it comes out on a service I can watch.
Yeah. And then I've started watching 1923 season 2, which has been okay.
Yeah, I'm gonna wait till that's got like 2 weeks to go, and then I'll start watching it.
Very fair. Yeah, I signed up for the free trial Paramount Plus and forgot to cancel it, so I'm basically just run out the clock mode at this point.
Yep.
There is a lot of anime coming out right now that you don't care about.
Checks.
Mm-hmm. I think there's. Oh yeah, how's the world of Path going?
Haven't played in a couple days. I've had a lot of projects around the house, hobby wise, and then my son had all of last week off for spring break, and so we have played an absolute asinine amount of board games.
Nice.
Either both him and I, or him, I, and my wife. Yeah, shit ton. So it's been good. But once I got to a certain point in Path of Exile, I said, okay, I'm going to prioritize. Like, if my son wants to play games, I'm just going to play games. And so I took a break after I hit 98, and I started getting my painting done for Adepticon and prioritizing family life. So it's been good.
All right, let's move into hobby chat then. You're all good up on the Adepticon painting?
Yep. I am 100%
Nice.
Painted with every model I care to paint right now.
Nice. I finally cracked the seal on painting. I got my Kogan done. He's in my car.
He did look very nice.
I don't know about that. He looked okay. There's always like the knocking the rust off paint job where it's like, I haven't painted in 11 months. This is going to be rough. And so I probably shouldn't have started with Kogan, but
Yep.
who's clearly the best model in the game. Who, for anyone who plays Judgment, though, you'll know what I'm talking about. Got my airbrush working. That was fun. And so now I'm gonna. I don't know what I'm gonna do. I want to paint Skull different than the orcs, but also I want to paint him like an orc. So, because he is an orc, which is weird. Because Ettins are not orcs for people at whoever picks that.
Well,
is it guns? Tell guns that orcs are not Ettins.
They needed to pick racial boundaries to make certain abilities synergize with
I
them.
know.
But yeah.
So if they're using orcs as like a generic term for any like
it should have been
races.
green skin or something to that effect.
Yeah.
Which is still more orcish than Etnish, I get it.
What was the Nothrog, I think? There was the old card game called Warlord, and they had 4 races. And there was the Free Kingdoms, the Deveranians, I think, which are like the evil humans. And then there was elves who were like these weird, I don't know, they were really weird elves because it's their own IP. And so they had a lot of like undead stuff like mixed into with their like, faction. And then there was I want to say it was Nothrogs, and it was basically all the bestial races. And so it was like orcs, goblins, lizard people, all that shit. And so it was pretty cool, like diversification of the way they did the races. But yeah, they should have come up with a term that was kind of like that, where it's like generic bad guys or, savage races. Because I don't know why the Ettin thing bothers me so much. It's because I actually really like Ettins in the lore of a lot of fantasy. And because, Ettins are kind of fun because like the dual personality stuff. And so when they're like, the orc, who is an Ettin? I'm like, I don't think you know what that word means. You might know this. Does the effigy need to be painted for Adepticon?
This
I'm sure a lot of people have asked that.
Pisses me off.
Okay.
What do you think the answer is / should be?
I think the answer should be no, because it's a piece of terrain. Now that said, with the way it works at Adepticon, I would actually expect people to paint them, but I don't think it's actually covered under the rules.
So is terrain not required to be painted at Adepticon?
Well, normally players don't supply terrain. That's why.
So
It's like, it'd be the same argument if you showed up like, well, your FG power token isn't painted or your monster respawn token isn't painted. It's a token. It's not a game piece. Like, it's different. And so, like, if you showed up to Adepticon with unpainted range rulers for your MCP list, I also wouldn't penalize you because it's not a model. And so it's just like, where do you draw the line? Because if you say, well, the FG has to be painted by you, it's like, well, that's different than every other game out there. And it's same thing with the tokens and all that stuff, measuring tools. Like, would I expect everyone to paint those? No, I would expect you to have your models painted.
So I am not a huge Adepticon stan. However, if you want to take Adepticon at its intent, I think, of being the premier tabletop wargaming event in the world, everything should be painted. And by everything, I mean everything that's on the table. So I would agree. I don't think your MCP range rulers need to be painted, but they're also not part of the table space.
I mean, I would agree they are the odds. We were ranking things on how important it was to be painted. Models are 10 out of 10. I would put the effigy somewhere around a 6.
Oh, I'd put it at 9.5.
Range rulers. Sure, but I would put range rulers at like a 2.
I concur with that. But
yeah,
that's so like if models are a 10, the effigy's a 9.5. Like probably a 10 for me. Yes. If I was in charge, they would absolutely fucking be required to be painted.
Okay. Well, but by that justification, though, if you show up and you have an effigy that isn't correct, I should say that you can't proxy models. You need the correct effigy.
That's right. That's a creature caster thing because they don't publish them. Period.
But there's cardboard ones in the set.
You could also use a cardboard one.
Yeah,
that would be fine.
And so,
but not an unpainted one, which is kind of weird.
I don't know what the etiquette is, but I think a lot of people bring their own effigies. Like, Sonny shows up with his custom one, right? Mm-hmm. It's like, well, that's not the right one. Like,
sure, I don't think anyone really cares what the effigy is, whether it represents the god or it's your personal one or whatnot. I don't care what you bring, but it should look nice with the table. It needs to be painted. Same thing with monsters. Monsters should be painted. You have a summons, needs to be painted. This is fucking Adepticon. Get your fucking paintbrush out and bring it.
Yeah, I would say summons should need to be painted.
And again, I'm not a huge proponent of this in any other format, but everyone keeps trying to skirt the fucking rules. Let's just see how much we can get away with.
What do you mean, like for not painting the effigy?
Yeah, not painting the effigies or monsters or.
Well, I mean,
or last the terrain.
Year last year they didn't even have painted terrain.
I understand.
It's like it feels bad. Yeah, it just feels bad when you show up to a table and you're like. And some guys complain that you didn't paint your effigy and the terrain isn't even painted and you're playing on a black mat and you're like, what are we doing here, guys? There's like calm down.
I understand.
It's like you're basically playing X-Wing at that point. It's like we're using freaking cardboard, maps. We're using paper maps, and you're yelling at me because my effigy isn't painted. Like, come on.
Yep.
And so I get it both ways. If somebody told me that it needs to be painted because it's a painted only event, I wouldn't freak out. But if somebody showed up assuming the answer was no and they threw a fit about it, and I was like, well, I mean, you should have asked because that's pretty borderline at best.
I guarantee you will see unpainted monsters and effigies.
I would be surprised if you don't see unpainted heroes.
Ugh.
I've watched people at Adepticon play with pewter War Machine models. And it's not like they had one unpainted guy. Their army was completely bare metal, and nobody said a word to them because that's kind of like that's the expectation in War Machine is that most events weren't painted only. And so even though Adepticon was, their opponents never called a judge or anything because they didn't care. They're used to playing against unpainted stuff. Now that would never fly in the 40K hall, right? Because they do expect you to have painted stuff. So it's a lot more community enforced than anything else. Like, I'm sure if somebody, complained, I would expect them to get in trouble for not having painted models and probably, disqualified basically. But also, like, the same people that go to 40K tournaments are like, my models are battle ready. And it's like they're kind of primered and they glued some random loose sand to the base it's not even uniform. It only covers like a third of the base. I'm like, this is clearly not what you are implying it is.
So I went to a Blood Bowl tournament 2 weekends ago.
Mm-hmm.
And my... I noticed one of the players, it was like after round 2, I'm like, looking over at like the table, he had standees when the Blood Bowl standard.
Like actual. Like he had cardboard standee models?
Yes.
Okay.
He had cardboard standees with and they were professionally done. It was a picture of the model, obviously in 2-dimension on the front
Mhm.
and all of their stats on the back. It wasn't just he didn't like write the name on it. Like it was a good
Yeah.
standee.
No, like high quality, like picture printed on,
Yep.
and it's like,
Yep.
yeah.
But
I
I'm
personally
thinking
wouldn't care, but if they show up to a paint only tournament and I was the judge, I'd tell them they couldn't play.
every single Blood Bowl tournament I've ever been to is painted required.
Mhm.
It's just like maybe it's a GW thing, but again,
It-
you got
it
11
tends to be
models.
a
Fucking
GW
just
thing.
it can't be that hard, right?
I mean, for me, somebody who doesn't generally paint all of my stuff, it's less about if I want to paint it or can't paint it. It's more that, like, I'm diverting that time I'm spending doing something else to this, and it's not a priority for me. And so if you're going to run it, like, if you're running painted only tournaments for Blood Bowl at the shop and I wanted to play, I have multiple painted teams. But if I didn't have the team I wanted to play painted, I just wouldn't show up.
Sure.
And so it's what is the goal for the having painted? Is it, and I've had this argument a bunch of times, is the goal to raise the bar for painting, or is it to gatekeep people that don't have painted stuff?
Neither. It's to encourage community involvement and sell the game in a positive light when people walk by and they're like, wow, that looks awesome.
Mhm.
That's why you paint your stuff. I think as a TO you require it because it enhances the entire tournament experience for everyone. Like
Except for the people that can't come.
You are correct.
Yeah. So I agree that if there was just a choice, do you want to have everyone have painted stuff or everybody not have painted stuff? There's no question there. Everyone would choose. Obviously, we want everybody to have painted stuff. And so it's just that, do you want to say, well, the people that can't or don't have time or choose not to prioritize painting aren't going to come, or they are. And so what we've done in the past is do heavily encourage painting by rewarding them in some way. So like we've done like what we used to do for War Machine back in the day was you get one raffle ticket for signing up for the event, and you get a second raffle ticket if you're painted. And then we've done other things based on like if you get an extra raffle ticket every round that you're fully painted. And so there's a lot of different ways you can encourage it, and that way, because let's say
I gave tournament points.
Yeah, I mean, you can give win-loss stuff. I never felt it was that important.
Yeah.
But what I noticed you did over the course of a year by doing that, you do see people start to be encouraged to paint a little bit. You see a higher percentage of what wouldn't have been painted.
Mm-hmm.
But let's say you have a community of 100 people as a hypothetical. And let's say 50 of them already have painted stuff. And they're always going to be painted every time. It doesn't matter. Let's say another 25% probably would paint their stuff if you required it. They might not have it done immediately, but they'd get it done quickly. And then the other 25% is basically never going to do it unless you absolutely require them to. And even then, they probably still won't. And so by saying we're immediately going to paint it only, you're going to only have 50% of the community show up to that event. And then throughout the next, let's say 6 months, you might increase that number to 75% of what it would have been. But you'll never get back to the 100% because some people can't or won't get their stuff painted.
Yep.
And so it's just like, where do you want that line to be? Do I want there to be 100 people at the event, or do I want there to be 50 people at the event? Because I will tell you, that because I work at the store, there's a lot of people that do not give a shit about painting. Now, I think they should, and I think there's a way more people that probably do care. But when you walk into a room, how many people are going to go, oh, you have 50 people playing in this tournament? That's cool. And then you walk in the next week and there's 100 people playing. You go, wow, this game's really popular. And so there's a different drawing power you get out of that, just having a high population. And obviously it is going to look way better painted, and everyone's going to enjoy the game more if it's painted. So that's just things we've looked at over time. And we always felt it was better to do painting encouraged in some way as opposed to painting required.
And you have a very different perspective as, the game store owner / manager, as opposed to the tournament organizer or community member or tournament participant, right? Those are all various viewpoints that you'll have with different opinions.
Yeah. And when I started running events back at 31st Century, 20 years ago now, I wasn't affiliated with the store at the time, so I was just running it as a TO. And we originally started painted only because that's just what the standard had been for a long time. And we were only getting 6 people for most tournaments. And we moved to not painted only, and we jumped up to 12 immediately. And then we grew it to about 18. But it kind of plateaued there. And so when we started doing, because a lot of people, we had the same problems. There's a lot of the painted people that, like didn't want to play against unpainted armies. And then there's the people that just didn't have the time or ability to get stuff done. And so they're kind of like on opposite ends of the spectrum. And you have the middle people that are trying either way. And over time, we started doing the painting encourage, where it's like, hey, you get, a better chance at door prizes, or you get, hey, if you get, something like maybe like we'll give you extra battle points if you're painted or something. And then it kind of grew over time. But I always felt that if you completely exclude that group of people and make it, because let's say, and it's obviously a lot easier. Sorry, I'm rambling a lot. It's a lot easier for skirmish games because the workload is so much smaller than if you're trying to paint a whole army.
Yep.
But yeah, I realized I was rambling, so I just stopped. All right, so yes or no, it's required.
Probably not.
Probably not. I just need to know if I need to bring an effigy tracker or an effigy.
You should just bring one of the 2D.
I will bring
cardboard
a lot
cutouts.
of effort. I'll bring a lot of effigy trackers and sell them to people that don't want to get disqualified. This is what I'll do.
I almost guarantee no one's going to get disqualified.
Yeah, I would assume not.
The specifically Judgment community, my impression is that they're hoping not to get yelled at by Adepticon staff.
Yeah, I know that's happened before.
As opposed to them
in general
leading the charge in the we're going to enforce X, Y, or Z. They're like, it's probably required, but we're going to see what we can get away with.
I watched one guy. This is before they moved to the Renaissance in Chicago, so this was probably like 2011-ish. And I watched one guy rules lawyer his way out of having to be painted. It was amazing because they had like an official Adepticon staff guy there, and there's the War Machine judge and like two other random judges from other games. And they were sitting there, and this guy shows up with completely bare plastic army, and he goes to deploy. And he's like, "What are you doing? It's painted only, man. You can't play unpainted." He's like, "No, I can't. It's in the rules." And they're like, "What are you talking about?" And he's like, "Yeah, I'll tell you." So he had all this stuff. He printed everything out. And he's like, "Yeah, it says here that blah, 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 the event details, must be painted, blah, blah, follows all rules for the game." And then immediately under that, there's a link to the Steamroller document. And so if you pull up Steamroller document, which I have here in the 3-ring binder, it's like page 3, section 4 says models must not be painted. Like there is no painting or hobby requirement other than the models must be fully assembled. And he's like, and because it's the more specific rule and it's printed later than the original requirement, it supersedes it. And then the main Adepticon guy's like, "That's clearly not what we made." He's like, "Well, that's what it says." And they just got into an argument. It was fucking hilarious. And they let him play. He got to play in the whole event. They're like, and then the next year they changed the wording. It was very funny. That guy was mad.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do know that they will get on people for not enforcing the painted rule. Let's see. The reason I'm mostly specific about it is I don't want to half-ass my models to get them done. And so I don't want to get them to like, "Hey, look, I've got paint on everything," but they're not painted. I hate getting my models in that state and leaving them. Mm-hmm. And so I don't want to get them 30% done and then be done with it. Do you know, is there Blood Bowl on Thursday?
Mm-hmm.
Is it the big event?
No. Big event's on Saturday/Sunday.
Okay.
Thursday is Sevens.
Are you playing in the big event this year?
I am not.
Too scared?
Yeah.
It's because Judgment big event's on Saturday, right?
Yeah. So Blood Bowl on Thursday, and then Judgment Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I try to prioritize the war game systems at cons because there are plenty of Blood Bowl tournaments everywhere, but they don't have Judgment events in random cities, right? There are a couple MCP ones, but for the most part, I was gonna say most MCP events are at cons. But I don't know if, like Squad Goals is obviously just an MCP specific event. I don't know if Everwinter over in the East Coast, if that is MCP specific or if that is just part of a con that's called Everwinter.
Yeah, I don't know.
Stuff like that.
Yeah, I would say if you're trying to find competitive games of any particular game system, Judgment would be the most rare of the ones we play. So obviously playing in a big Judgment event is more exclusive than playing in a big Blood Bowl event.
Yep, and I'll be getting Blood Bowl in the following 2 weekends.
Yeah, I might try and record some Blood Bowl again this year, but because Judgment's on Saturday, I'd only be able to probably do it Sunday. So I might not try. We'll see. Have you guys practiced sevens at all?
I brought it to the shop last Friday. We played 2 games, and that's enough.
Is it like Judgment 3's?
It is better than Judgment 3's in a relative sense.
Okay.
It's Blood Bowl. It is the Div 2 college equivalent of Blood Bowl. You can only ever take one of each positional, and you don't get any rerolls.
Is the board more narrow?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Is it just the center line of the board? Or is it not that narrow?
It is not that narrow.
I don't know. The lack of symmetry would just hurt me.
It is symmetrical. I think it's 16 squares from end zone to end zone instead of 26.
No, the symmetry of the board is fine. I'm saying the symmetry of your team. Like, because you only have one of each positional. And, like, I don't know why, but it's like, yeah, I have a blitzer on each side. I have a runner on each side. Like, it's like, I need the symmetry. Like, yeah, you have one of this guy. I'm like, well, that doesn't make sense.
Oh, wait. So never mind. You can only ever have 4 non-linemen. How about that?
Oh, okay. So I could take
cap.
all 4 blitzers off of the work team?
Yes. 4 blitzers and two linemen. 3 linemen. I think that's the rule set. I'll have to go back and double check.
Okay. That doesn't bother me as much then.
Yeah. So it's not 1. It's just max of 4. And basically no rerolls. And so you're just... And no skills. No skills, no rerolls, just fucking go. So yeah, it's a lot of, well, failed to pick that ball up, your turn. Oh, failed to block, I guess it's your turn. Yeah. Like I said, Div 2 college football, just watching monkeys fucking around on an ice skating rink.
Yeah, interesting. I would definitely not introduce people to the game that way.
Yeah, no, probably not a good introduction. But again, as long as you're not taking it super seriously, I think it can be casually competitive. Any Blood Bowl game can just go south with bad dice, and this one especially so. But you're almost guaranteed for your opponent to have bad dice too, and there's nothing they can do about it. So it's a lot about, instead of trying to mitigate your risk and avoid the bad dice by having the rerolls when they happen, it's how do you change your plan when the bad dice do happen. So instead of mitigating something to where it doesn't happen, you mitigate the consequences because you know it's going to happen. And I think that's an interesting take on the game.
Yeah.
So
finding your way out of bad situations because you're already in them, as opposed to avoiding the bad situations.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah.
But realizing that it's still just not a horrible dice game, but it's a very much a dice game, and you could very much lose some games just because. You just got to roll with it.
Yeah, for sure. Do you have any predictions for how you think the Judgment Tournament's going to look? Like, do you think there's like a popular faction right now? Because I know, like, last year there was what people thought was like the good list, and then that's kind of
last year now. There was a broken list last year.
Mm-hmm.
This year there's not. I do not think we will see a predominance of Bruellen or Ista, but the other 4, it's anyone's guess. Personal opinion.
Cool. Where are we at in the like the meta or the nerf cycle for Judgment? Because I want to say
June/July is the next one.
Okay. It's pretty far away.
It's probably going to be very small.
Yeah, I would guess so.
I think their goal is for the mid-season patch to be just super small tweaks for whatever they think needs tweaked, and then the bigger one at year end.
Guns doesn't come up for Adepticon or anything, right?
He has in the past. He is not coming up for this Adepticon.
Okay. And
they just changed their tournament season. I don't know if you were there when we discussed that, but
yeah, it's a Warfare now.
Yeah, it'll start at LVO and end at Warfare. No, I lied, because LVO is before Warfare.
Warfare is in November.
And LVO is in October.
Oh, because LVO moved.
Yeah. So yeah, so it'll go, I don't know when they'll kick off the season, if it'll be like the 1st of January. The first big event will be Adepticon, but I would imagine the 1st of January will actually kick off their tournament season. We'll see what they do.
Yeah, I'm excited to see the layout of the new con. I really like the way it was laid out in previous years, so hopefully the fact that it's at a convention center as opposed to a hotel now won't mess it up.
I just need to remember to bring my earpods.
AirPods?
That's not what I said, that's what I meant.
Is it because Kenny snores?
No, it's because that's the one big thing I can't stand at cons is the constant drone of people. Drives me nuts. I have hyperacusis, which means that loud noise actually just starts causing me pain after a while. So, not like migraines and headaches or stuff, but just need to leave and turn it off for a while.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's jump into Mojo World for this week. This week's topic is we have movies that are inspired by video games. And so, just to clarify, that's not just inspired by a singular video game, but inspired by video game culture. All right, Aaron, you get to go first this week. Are you excited?
Not really. And the reason I'm not excited is because most movies based off of video games or that have video games as their main plot line, are fucking horrible.
Yeah, we kind of noticed that after we started picking movies. They're hot dog shit.
So I'm just gonna get roasted for all of my picks, but I don't care at this point. My first pick is what's the actual title? Tomb Raider.
The old one or the new one?
The old one. I haven't even seen the new one.
Okay. I'm going to have to put in a date on that.
2001, I think.
That sounds right.
We're going to call those Angelina's prime years.
Yeah. I want to say that was really what kicked off her big fame at the time. I am willing to bet you're going to get some roast over that.
Yep. Now, here's my defense. And granted, this is like 19-year-old me watching Angelina in, tight clothes. Yeah. But that movie, if no one knew it was based off of a video game, would still have been an okay, like, B-level action movie.
I'll give you B-level action movie. It was bad. B for bad. That was not a good movie. Yeah.
It wasn't necessarily worse than any of their action movies, put it that way. Like, I don't think it was ruined by being a video game adaptation.
Yeah, it was definitely one of those, like, some idiot director got a hold of a budget and just decided to make the weird scenes in his head come to life. But, yeah, I don't know. I don't remember enough about the movie. I just remember there's, like, the wire act scene where she's, like, jumping around shooting people, but I don't know. It was clearly a movie built around 3 scenes, and they just wanted to make. Anyway, the first movie I'm going to pick here is near and dear to my heart, and anyone who knows me well knows that, is Grandma's Boy. It's Happy Madison production, so it's like Adam Sandler's production company, but he's not in the movie. But it's all the same people that are always in his movies, and it's based around some 40-year-old guy that lives with his friend in an apartment. They get evicted in the opening scene, and he is a playtester at a video game company, and I think this movie is one of the best hidden gems that only like 20% of people know even exists. It is fucking hysterical. I love it so much.
Cool.
Next one up is, I think, a pretty good cult classic that a lot of people like, is Scott Pilgrim versus the World. All right, Aaron, you got take us home. You got your closers.
Okay. Yeah.
You better.
So we're gonna dip into the B- action / horror, Resident Evil.
Oh, that was on my list.
Okay.
I use Resident Evil as the exact litmus test for what is a fun movie versus a good movie, because I think the original Resident Evil was actually pretty good.
It's fine.
It's not cinema, but it's fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I do not like horror at all.
Mm-hmm.
So Resident Evil and Alien, that's as horror as I ever get.
Mm-hmm.
I don't do jump scares and stuff. So
yeah,
that's why they're all borderline to me.
Yeah, I cannot understand why people watch actual horror movies. There's very occasional good ones, like The Shining is like a legit good horror movie, but so many horror movies are just jump scare fest. I'm like, how is this entertaining? It's just really boring and slow until they literally jar you into excitement for a brief moment. I'm like, okay, I don't get it.
Yep.
I don't understand how you could ever put this movie below Tomb Raider. This movie is so much better than Tomb Raider.
Okay. Well, we'll see what the internet has to say. I'm not holding my breath.
We should do these as individual. Like I'm going to post just your 3 movies as the poll this week and just see which one gets the most votes. 100% Resident Evil.
And my last one, we're going to go back to 1986 Matthew Broderick.
Yes! That was the one I was saying that a lot of people should have.
Yeah, War Games. It should actually probably be number 1 on my list.
Again, I don't know how you went from Tomb Raider is the best of this list into War Games and then Resident Evil, you psychopath.
Only because I think the other 2 are more in keeping with the genre. I mean, War Games, there is definitely a computer game central to the core of the movie, but the movie isn't just about the game, let's put it that way. So
that is true.
So that's why I put the other 2 first, because I think they were more truer to the concept of the genre.
So this one I haven't seen since I was a kid, but it's so inspiring for an entire genre and generation that I think you can't not pick it, and I can't believe you didn't pick it because I left it for you, is Tron. This was the one I said, how do you not have this on your list? And unless you haven't seen it. Right?
Never seen it?
Exactly. So there you go. I had Tron Legacy on my list for a while. I switched it over to Tron because, I don't know, the new ones are... There's a lot of weird crap tied up with the new ones. I think Tron is just so iconic to, again, the whole franchise that it unfortunately inspired a lot of ones like Doom and House of the Dead, a lot of other shitty movies, but Max Payne, the movie.
I haven't seen Warcraft. Probably don't need to.
Yeah, you probably don't need to. I actually heard it was okay. So honorable mentions real quick. I liked the movie Gamer. It's kind of odd, but it's okay. Ready Player One is, I think, worse than a lot of people say it is, but it's still very much grained in the whole thing. A friend of mine's favorite movie for a long time was Wing Commander. I don't understand how that's possible, but he said it was.
Jumanji: The Next Level.
Is that based on a video game?
They're in a video game.
Is that how it works? I haven't seen any of the new Jumanjis. Okay.
Yeah. Well, the second one specifically. I think it's the second one. One of them, they actually have lives when they die and they come back and they have counters.
Okay. I thought that was just all of them, but I don't know.
No, the original one is not a video game at all.
No. So the original one, Jumanji, but I don't think the other ones are sequels, are they? Aren't they just reboots?
No, they're both sequels.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that. Next
sure
up is...
Yeah, because they talk about the original kid.
Okay.
Anyway.
The original Mortal Kombat movie. Super legit.
I probably saw that a long time ago, but I didn't remember enough to put it on any list.
Pokemon 2000. And then one that I actually want to recommend to people is The King of Kong. A Fistful of Quarters is like a documentary on Netflix. Follows a guy who tried to beat the all-time record of the Donkey Kong video game. It's just kind of cool, like the amount of work that some people put into their hobbies to become the best. It's pretty cool. He basically has a original Donkey Kong arcade machine in his garage. A VHS records himself playing it, and then submits the tapes for like the rankings. But they don't recognize them as. So he's beaten the all-time record multiple times this way, but they don't recognize it because he didn't do it at an event. And so he goes to, in the documentary, he goes to one of these events to try and win the all-time record. And then the guy who has the all-time record shows up and like they talk for a bit and stuff. But it's a fun little documentary. All right. So for the record, Aaron has the number one with a bullet, first pick off the board, Tomb Raider, followed by the not as good movies War Games and Resident Evil.
Hell yeah.
I going second, I was only managed to get Scott Pilgrim, Tron, and Grandma's Boy. So this is gonna be a hard week for me. But yeah, we're gonna try and get another episode in next week before Adepticon starts. But with everyone busy and out of town, we'll kind of see how it goes. But hopefully, we'll have another episode for you. Hopefully, you had a good time. This has been Brandon
and Aaron,
and you've just listened to The Raider of Tombs.
So what are we going to call this thing? I got it. Okay. Incredible, new, fantastic, astonishing,
mighty, original, uncanny, sensational podcast.
I'm just gonna put down Infamous.